Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. First of all, thank everybody for coming out and giving me the opportunity to meet you all and to have some oneness with our ummah across borders and across cities and all that stuff, which is really wonderful. It's wonderful to see everybody. And of course, Toronto, you guys are one of the most densely populated Muslim communities in the country, possibly in the continent. Possibly after the cities in England, it's Toronto, maybe even more than Michigan, probably more than Texas even. So it's nice to come here and see everybody, even though it's a quick one day. But on the topic, which was on gender, I think it's one of the most important subjects because human beings, if they don't get this right, very quickly they cease to exist. If you don't get this subject matter correct, and we don't have guidance on this, we would literally cease to exist, because human beings are composed of, essentially, we're like machines. In one way, we're like machines. You have to add two parts, like a chemical reaction. You need to add these two parts. Now, these two parts is not just the fluids that we're adding. It's not just the DNA that we're adding. We have a cosmological view of the matter. There is a, if we could say, supernatural or metaphysical is the right word. Or there's a metaphysical element to what you're combining to produce a fine human being. Now, if you want bodies are easy. You can get bodies easily. But human being is beyond just the body. When a person is dead in front of you, you don't call him by his name anymore. You say the body. Right? You no longer say Abdullah, if that was his name. You say the body. So that's a recognition, just the way we talk, that human beings are far more than just the body. So as we need a male and female fluid and DNA to produce the body, well, you need a lot more something else to produce the human. And if we just have bodies and no metaphysical teaching and guidance on how to be a human, then you're just going to kill ourselves. And life will be so miserable as it has been in the past. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He didn't send messengers and prophets all the time. There were long periods of time in which there were no prophets and messengers. Why is that? To show human beings how bad it can get. Like, you don't know why you live, why you exist, how to exist, all this stuff. So just as you need the right chromosomes and DNA from both sides, well, likewise, there are a metaphysical element, which we're going to best call it as sifat, attributes. And Allah's attributes that He's placed a likeness, a small likeness of His own attributes, a likeness of His attributes in males and a likeness in females. And this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكْرٍ وَأُنثَى. We created you as males and females was just a description in the past. And now it's like a wake up to realize, like, you can't mess around with this. It's males and it's females. You have a positive charge and negative charge. You can't touch these things. You ever charge your car battery? So these things have to be treated as Allah created them. So metaphysically, you have sifat al-jamal and sifat al-jalal. You have attributes of jamal and jalal. And jalal usually translates as strength and all the attributes of strength. And jamal is all the attributes of mercy and softness. That's generally how you can divide the attributes of Allah. There's a couple different ways to divide the attributes of Allah. One way to study the divine attributes are that which can be known by the mind, by itself. You put a person on an island and he could know some attributes of the Creator. And that which is known by transmission. That's one way to study the attributes. Another way to study the attributes, when you study the transmitted attributes only now, the transmitted ones, you can study them as Jamal and Jalal. And this is very common, well known. Any Aqidah class that you take, any study of the divine attributes you take, you're going to study this. Another way to look at it are in pairings. There are clusters of attributes that all have a same general meaning, and then different sub-meanings. A good example of this is Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir. Okay, and what time did you say? When this goes off, you have Q&A? Right. Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir. All of them, you can translate it as the creator. But Al-Khaliq is the creator from nothing. I can create something, but it's got to be from something, right? I can create a recipe. I created a recipe, and some of my Desi friends rejected it. The recipe is a little bit of chai in the kheer, right? It's called cheer. A little bit of chai, touch of chai in the kheer. It's an invention. I could say I created it, right? I can even use the word creation, right? Say I created it. But what did I create it with? Other things. I created it with other things. So Khaliq is creator from nothing. There's absolutely nothing, and suddenly there's something. That's Al-Khaliq. Al-Bari indicates the internal mechanisms of the thing. That this thing, if you look at an airplane, you think, how many physical parts are there? Like probably, 3 million? From screws to how many literal physical different parts are there? If you had to lay out all the parts that it takes to make an airplane, it's probably a million, probably. A couple 100,000 at least. Then they have to go in a certain area. One little screw is missing, the whole plane goes down. So that's Al-Bari. That it's an innovation. It's something new. It's a created thing that is so complex. That's the shade that the word Al-Bari gives. And then Al-Musawwir. Al-Musawwir, when you look at a plane, not every element of the plane is pretty. It's not always pretty. Functional things are not always pretty. Gymnasiums are functional, right? Different function than, let's say, a 5-star restaurant. Which one is prettier, right? Which there's very little you could do in a 5-star restaurant except sit down. You have a gymnasium like this, you could do 100 different things in it. So function and form. Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir. So you could study the divine names by clustering them. For example, the names related to his knowledge are so many. So there's difference. There's slight difference between each one. And his mercy, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman, all the mercy that's external. Iblis even has some of this. Is not Iblis alive? So some of Allah's mercy is still reaching him. Rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. My mercy extends over all things. That doesn't mean the thing is happy, good, or going to heaven. So some of Allah's mercy is reaching Iblis right now. It's reaching Netanyahu right now. Allah's mercy is reaching everybody. Some of the worst people on the earth right now are enjoying food. They're enjoying friendship. They're laughing. They're having kids. All these things. But Ar-Rahim is a special type of mercy that only reaches the mu'mineen. Allah says for the believers, He's Ra'uf Ar-Rahim. Exclusive. And that's what makes you happy. And that's exclusive to someone who has iman and good deeds. Rahim, that's what makes you happy. Mercy extends over all things. Does not mean you're going to heaven. Does not mean you're happy. Does not mean Allah loves you. Does not mean you're good. Just means you're getting some mercy. And that's really what we say. We say God has mercy with everyone. The Christians say God loves everyone. Now let's get back to the subject. So when we study the subject of gender, one of the things we have to do, and I don't think you are the audience that needs to really be told this, but we have to do a brain drain. Society has filled our heads with conceptions and notions. And we have to drain all of that out to see how exactly does Allah want the genders to exist? And the first thing that we're going to do, we drain our brains out of everything we know. If you truly want to be educated, you got to accept to empty your mind. And then let the Quran tell you everything. If you truly want to have a teacher, and you go to somebody and say, listen, I'm running a company, but we really stink. I need you to take me from A to Z. Take me to the promised land. You got to say, listen, it's all on the table. Fire who I fire, change what I change. We got to change everything. You got to do exactly what the master tells you to do. Some people don't succeed. They don't listen to anybody. It's arrogance. It's arrogance. They refuse to listen. If you want to be a winner in anything, you can do it. It's actually not that hard. You ask anyone who's really won in any sphere of life, he'll tell you it's easy. But you got to follow some rules. You got to listen to exactly what I'm telling you. So when we come to a huge subject like gender like this, we have to do this. We got to drain our minds of everything. And then let the Quran, let the prophets, let the mothers of the believers who know best, let them tell us how to live. They know how to live better than anybody else. If anything, the Western society has proven itself that it doesn't know how to live. They don't know how to live. If you look at business administration, they're number one. But if you look at family life, they're probably zero, last place on the earth. They're in last place. Haiti and these super poor countries, they know better. If you go to any village in Africa, they know how to live a family life far better than us here in the Western countries. And America probably is far worse than Canada. But that's the first thing. The second thing, when you drain your mind, there's still walls up in your brain. We got to demolish everything. So the first thing we're going to demolish is this very simplistic line that the Western mindset has, which is that the subject matter is men and women. Let's look at in the Quran for that. You're not going to find anything. You're not going to find any bifurcation except that you're created as males and females. You're not going to find a bifurcation of men should do this and women should do that. So the first thing is the structure itself of our mind on the subject matter of males and females. Demolish it. It's not there in the Quran. Well, what does the Quran have? What does the Sunnah have? What does the prophetic teaching have? The prophetic teaching describes you in relation to somebody else. It never describes you in relation just to your gender. So if I want to know, well, how does Allah tell me to be a man? Or how does Allah tell me to be a woman? Want me to be a woman? You're not going to find anything. This is how to be a man. No, you're going to find the first thing. This is how to be a husband. So in relation to a wife. Then you're going to find how to be a dad in relation to children. Then you're going to find how to be a child, how to be a son or a daughter. So in relation to my mom. Now I'm also going to know what's the difference between my mom and my dad. Even that, there's a difference. So it's not sufficient to say how to be a child. No, how to be a son to a mom is one subject. How to be a son to a dad, subject number 2. How to be a daughter to a dad. How to be a daughter to a mom. 4 different. So you see now we're breaking this very simplistic line of men versus females. We have nothing to say about that except that that's how you're created. After that, we have to say the relationship. So what my relationship to women, I could say I got a mom, I got a sister, you got a niece, got a wife, got a daughter, got a grandma, got a mother-in-law. I have people hierarchically above me in the masjid who are females. They're board members. It's a different relationship. I have people who are neighbors. That means the relationship is this. Hello, that's it. That's the relationship. Then there are random women walking around. I have no relationship with them. Zero business with them. Yeah? I don't give them nasiha. I don't need to talk to them. I have no business with them at all. They have no business with me. Then you're going to have, what else are you going to have? You're going to have employees, hierarchically less than you in a business, right? In a masjid, in what have you. And you can have students. Then you may possibly have teachers. You have like a plethora of relationships. And we can't get into all of this all of the time. We're only going to cover one, which is husband and wife. This is matrimonial age, by the way. I'm sure you all know that. This is very important for you to know as 18, 19, 20, you're in the matrimonial age. You're about to get married. So you should know this thing and you should study it. One thing I observed is that one of the reasons there's a high divorce rate everywhere. In Islam and Muslim community outside of it. What's the reason for that? Well, you never study it. But you got a person, all right, I'm in IT, whatever. Another person's in medical field. How many years do you study for this? You're going to do 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 4 years of residency. You're going to take 8-hour exams. You're going to have studied tens of thousands of hours to do what? To work. Okay. And when you work and somebody one day puts a gun to your head and says, you got two options. You lose your marriage or you lose your career. Everyone's going to say, oh, I'll get fired. I'll keep my marriage. That's going to be a mess. Who wants to have a bad marriage? I'll have a good, I can find another job. I can work at another hospital. I can even find a whole nother career. That's not hard. But a divorce, it scars you for life. I've never seen a person fired from a job and tells me he's scarred for life because he got fired from a job. But I've never seen a person get divorced who isn't scarred for life. It is one of the worst experiences a person will go through. And if you see other people going through it, you should learn a lesson. Raise your hand here if you've seen or yourself have been through a divorce. Beyond 1 year of marriage, because maybe that first 1 year of marriage, okay, maybe it's not such a big deal. But when you're 5, 7, 8 years into marriage and you're kids, this has got to be one of the worst experiences that happen to a person. And so many people, I've seen them literally go berserk. Some people leave Islam if they're converts and they marry in, and it's so bad. All right, so if you admit that, how many hours of study goes into being a husband? 0. If the guy watches a YouTube video or picks up and reads 2 pages of a book, you're lucky. If he attends 1 session, usually people get married. I say, you have to sit with me for a session. It's like 20 minutes. What is he going to learn from that? So marriage, to do it right, requires, it's a social science and it's a religious science. It's a religious science. You're going to see, how does Allah want us to be masculine and to be men? We're going to work it backwards. What has Allah obligated on us? The qualities required to fulfill those obligations, that's what makes up a man. So we have appearance requirements. There are requirements and prohibitions and recommendations on our appearance, likewise for women. That immediately is going to tell you how Allah wants you to be. For example, none of us need to know that Allah Ta'ala wants all of us to have some hair on our face. So He doesn't want you to be so smooth. He needs the little bit of roughness, right? We all know the hukum shari, every man must carry the load of his family's roof, clothes, and food at the level he took them. You married a person in a middle class, then that's the level required. You married someone at an upper class, then if nothing was said, then that's what's required. Okay? As you took her, that's how she's going to continue to live. So that's a big burden. So there's some stress in there. What else is there? There's competition. You got to wake up, you got to go out and work and compete against other guys. And Allah has not asked that from women. He does not want them to go out and compete with strangers. It's going to do something to their personality that's not going to be good for them. And if a guy doesn't do that, if your dad says to you, get married and do whatever you want, study, I will foot the bill. This will actually ruin you. It's going to ruin your character. Nothing makes a man better than him having to roll up his sleeve and face the hard knocks of life outside of the house. And he earns with his own teeth. You got to earn it yourself. You want to ruin a man? Give him the money straight. Not as a loan for work, that's fine, but give him money to live. Here, take this check, live your family, get married, have kids, and just charge everything to the card. And there are millionaires who can do that, and billionaires, it's not that difficult. I can find some people here who live like that. We know people who live like that. The guy 5, 10 years into marriage and never worked a day in his life because his parents are rich. His parents are rich but ignorant. You ruin the kid like this, and his wife doesn't respect him. Now let's flip it now. Let's flip it. You go into an arrangement where your wife herself does the work. She works and she earns. And she provides for the guy. This is the exact opposite of what Allah required. You're going to see these relationships do not succeed because you're going the opposite way of nature. What Allah commanded us is what's nature. We don't need to study what nature is by going doing anthropology, by going looking how monkeys live and apes and saying, okay, that's how they live and we're their closest species to us. We don't need to do a lot of studies. Look at what Allah tells us and commands us and work it backwards. The attributes of males and masculinity are in what Allah commands, and the qualities required to fulfill those commandments. And the opposite's the case. What has Allah done in nature? Man's role in child rearing is nothing, zero. In producing kids, his role is zero. He does nothing. He's going to do all the work afterwards. After 2 years and 3 years, once that kid really needs food, shelter, and stuff, then he's going to do the job. But what is Allah? What is the course of nature? Is that women are going to carry children. If you're going to carry children immediately, throws a big wrench in your career. This is a fact of life. You can't be in any career and go the whole course and have 3 and 4 and 5 kids and have a full career. So what is Allah telling you? This is not your main goal. He has made it not very possible. That doesn't mean that she can't have a career. They're not going to be very fulfilled without a career, but it's going to tell you it's not going to be the main thing. Because this thing that nature has put, Allah Ta'ala has put in your life, and people who don't want this, you're going to see the clock is ticking. They call it a biological clock. And they start getting very antsy if they don't have kids. Why is that? Is it social? No. Allah has put it in our hearts. In the hearts of women. Without having kids, there comes a window. They get very upset. It's nature. Allah has created fitrah. So we can't deny the fitrah and go against it. Go against nature at your own risk. Nature is undefeated. And nature is Allah's creation. It's Allah's earth. Right? When we say nature, that's Allah's earth. It's undefeated. This is one of the best things that a person could do, is never to go against nature, fitrah, and sharia. You're going to succeed, even if society is telling you the opposite. So again, it's not to say that there's a limit, that's all raising kids and that's it. No, we have careers. All my women of my family have careers, all of them. My wife has a career. My mother-in-law had a career. My mom had a career. But my sister has a career. They all have careers. And they're immensely successful. In fact, some of them, they're more successful than the guys. You say, what's going on in the world? Why are the women more successful than all the guys? But what's important is to realize, what is the priority here? Let nature take its course and let the career come when it comes, right? And a guy's taking the course is quite the opposite. If a guy wants to have a good time and he wants to enjoy himself, he's got to put that on the shelf. I never understand how women have now are taking work and career and school far more seriously than guys. Guys are in video games. They're in I don't know what. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. It should be the opposite. And guys, they need motivation to work. They need motivation to have ambition. Someone's got to get to the bottom of it. That's why I said this subject is a religious science and a social science, because something is off in the ambition of males, of men. That ambition should be there. And Allah not only has He not put an interruption there, He hasn't put any interruptions there, He's obligated you. We're obligated. So we've only looked at a couple things here, but now you know how to think about this subject. You look at it in the opposite. What has Allah commanded? And work the qualities that it takes to do that, work it backwards. And that's what's going to teach us what is masculinity and what's femininity. So the philosophy of this talk is the method of thinking about the subject. Of number one, what we call takhliya, emptying out all the what society has filled in our heads, all the social contracts about gender that society's put, empty it all out. And then tear down the walls. Tear down the walls, forget men and women. Let's look at relationships. We only talked about one relationship, which is husband and wife, but we haven't talked about son or mother and son. And that's a whole thing. And father and son, there's a whole, and father and daughter. Mother, all these relationships we would have to discuss. If we had a book, those would be the chapters. But the number one chapter would be the structure of thinking. Then what gender is to us, the sifat, the attributes of men and women you're gonna look at. Number one, explicit commandments. That's gonna be subsection number one. Explicit commands of how to appear, how to walk, how to talk. Number two, what are the Shadee obligations Allah has put on a man? What are the qualities, work it backwards, that are required? What are the Shari obligations that Allah has put on women? Follow the qualities backwards. What is the qualities that take? That's a quality of femininity. What is the natural way Allah created us? Because Allah's will is in two things. It's in the law that He gives, and it's also in the creation itself. That is Allah's will. That is Allah's signs. What in creation, how has Allah made us? What are the natural things? And then work those backwards. Whatever it is, that's what Allah wants. That's how Allah wants us to be. Then we can extract, almost like pharmacology, extract the active ingredients here. Okay, these qualities become the active ingredients. Now we could list them, and that's how a Muslim mind, submitted to Allah and His Messenger and the creation as it is, that's how the Muslim mind is going to determine what are masculine qualities, what are feminine qualities. Our time is up, and we'll turn it now to Q&A. Are we just to leave it?
Then I guess we can go with questions from the other side and sister side. I'll start with any hands that look fury. So what name to talk? And you talk about how these spoiled makes you weak as a man. Growing up in the West, let's say you've been spoiled your entire childhood, but now you want to become mature. What's the best sort of action?
We have to look at the obligations Allah made on you. Get married. Well, you have to be emotionally prepared. When you work is the first thing. You should start. If I had a spoiled kid, I'm going to say, listen, you're one of 5 people in this house or 6 people in this house. You're paying 1/6 of the way. You're paying 1/6 of the way. You're lucky I don't charge you rent either, right? So facing bills and the pressure that comes with bills, it's going to change you. There's no time anymore for video games. You got to start learning how to make money. And this is the best way to learn how to make money, is to make bad money, to make a small amount of money. Working so hard and you see the check stinks. It's terrible. That's the best way to learn how to make money, because you become dissatisfied. Effort here, output is here. Not only that, well, other people work. Well, what do my friends do? How much does he earn? How much does he earn? How much does he earn? All of a sudden, why are they earning more than me? Then look at what their earning does to them. Their earning has earned them a lot more than money. When you do well, you earn a lot more than money. There's other things that come with it. So do your obligations, because masculinity is going to be attained in Islam by the qualities required to fulfill those obligations. Every single sunnah and obligation that's there, do it. It's going to force you into the mold of what a man is. First of all, one of them is hanging out with guys. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, commands us to pray morning and evening. All right. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُم بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ. Who are they? The guys who pray Fajr and Isha in the masjid. So you're going to be forced to you'll be with a whole bunch of guys. If you're acting spoiled or off in any way, they're going to realize you're going to get looks. So fulfilling the obligations that we have on us is what's going to mold us in the right way. Listen, I mean, all my family is all doctors. My mom was a doctor. My sister's a doctor. So I'm speaking from a perspective of an observer of Muslim women, and also don't think just because someone's got a thobe, his whole lineage is all practicing Muslims. So I have a very expansive perspective on non-religious family members. I have many non-religious families. We ourselves weren't. So just so people don't think that the perspective is narrow. But my knowledge of them is like, how do they navigate it? They've navigated it with a priority. They put their family first, and then they put their education second, but they also refuse to be the main earners of this family. And I think that creates a lot of resentment. It's not the fitrah, it's not the commandment of Allah, it's not the way to go, that the female, the wife, spends on the husbands. And I know some people who have this, some by accident, guy's just down on his luck, woman very successful. It happens. It's not good, even by accident. And I see it done on purpose, and I just wonder, I mean, how is this being accepted? They have an agreement. He stays home with the kids. She works. I just wonder, I don't know how it works, but I don't believe in it. And nobody should believe in it. And no man should ever even ask his wife to cover bills. Maximum, worst case scenario, you take a loan with 2 witnesses. A loan, husband and wife, he doesn't have to pay that back, right? It's going to be too awkward for her to ask for that. And when she does, he's going to get upset, right? A loan, you take a loan. Maximum, worst case scenario, there's no one else besides your wife to take a loan from? I'll take a loan from 100 friends first, right? This is how Allah has made us. Whether or not society is teaching us something else. Anything beyond that a woman wants to live is extra. And she can. You can live here like this on your salary. And she's accepting, you're accepting, we're all happy. But she's also very successful. Now you can live here. That's up to you. That's up to you. But the main foundation of the living, the commandment is on the man. This is why Allah calls them qawwamuna ala nisa, always standing vis-a-vis the women in their life. That means, regarding my mom, he's the one working, serving, producing the money, producing whatever she needs. Because eventually at a certain point, your parents got to come in with you. Regarding the qawwamun ala nisa, all the women of the family. That means all of the men in the family are the ones producing the support and the sustenance for all of the women in the family. This is how it is. I mean, isn't this how the whole world used to be? And anything that she gives after that is sadaqah. And he can enjoy it, no problem. Yes. So that.
Great. Hadith you always use hadith radiallahu.
Oh, that you talked about Khadija radiallahu anha. First of all, Khadija had a lot of money, that's true. And she managed that money. We don't know how she earned that money though. Because some of them, you may find some works that say that she inherited the money. There is no concept that she was out there haggling. I don't know if that's the case. It could be, it could not be. Who knows? We don't know, right? But the Prophet, she had the money, but the Prophet also doubled her money. Isn't that what it says in the Sirah? That he earned double the Prophet than anyone else. So he actually enhanced it. And he was the one going to Yemen or to Syria. He didn't go to Yemen. He went to Syria. And he was the one doing the trade, correct? So, and she was where? She was not out in caravans with him doing the trade. She was at home and he went and did the trade. So he fulfilled his role. Eventually, the wealth in that household, the bulk of it was earned by the Prophet ﷺ. They became very wealthy, very well off, to the point that you had the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidah Khadija, Barakah. Now let's add the 4 daughters, Kulthum, Ruqayya, Zainab, Fatima, radiyallahu ta'ala anhunna. Then add to that Zayd bin Haritha. Add to that Ali bin Abi Talib. How many of us can have a 9-person household? There may have been more. Allah knows best. Maybe even more people lived under the Prophet. 8 people. Right? So, yes, tafaddal. Dua that we don't get grilled on the Instagram comments, right?
Only fun.
Look, you can probably put the stuff that relates to grilling the guys, because that's socially acceptable, but not about having the babies. That's not socially acceptable. But the guys, once they fulfill a certain set of bills, you don't know what else there can be done. But there has to be a responsible person whose head is in the right direction, that can lead a family, that can be respected is the key. I think that's the number one key. Can he be respected, or is he still playing? Playing, al-la'ib, believe it or not, is forbidden after a certain age, for no reason. Al-la'ib, for play for no reason, becomes forbidden. And if you ask any adult, it's like blasphemous, the idea of wasting time. There's no time to waste. So playing, when a guy plays too much, I think that may be the issue. He's no longer respectable. That's literally one of the factors and the features that why women, they complain about men, is that the guy is still adolescent or infantile even in his mentality. He wants to play. He hasn't grown up beyond that. Well, the best thing for that is tadabbur al-Quran. Contemplate the Quran, because Allah's prepared a hellfire. Like He's given us something very scary to avoid. Contemplation of the Quran is going to stop a person from this for your own sake. Then by extension of that, you become respectable in the eyes of everybody. Forget potential suitors. You become respectable in everyone's eyes because you stop playing. And I think that that's the number one most important quality that women complain about. Yeah, he works, but his mind is not there, right? Allah knows best. So this is a huge topic. Yeah. Ultimately, awliya Allah, they have a private relationship with Allah. They have something between them and Allah in private. And everybody can do that. And that's really what it comes down to. That there has to be some kind of conversation between yourself and Allah all the time. You become deep, and that's the source of ikhlas. The reason people are sincere in what they do is they know how they enjoy being alone in their munajats with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Munajat is like a personal discourse. It's different from dua, and that is maybe can involve complaints, expression of hopes, ambitions, desires, like that. That's munajat. And dua even is amongst that.